before we discussed the general setups of the visual structure of the mandala, and I would like to go further by discussing that the implication behind that altogether, and on that particular seat of lotus, who sits the crazy wisdom body of all Buddhas of the past, the present, the future, and that particular person is the embodiment of basic sanity, who actually controls, directs the rest of the universe at the same time, and phenomena, all of existence, are included in that particular direction. And that particular body seems to be related to the figure, if you like to call it, is related with the sense of devotion, object of devotion. That somebody's rough guess, so to speak, on the notion of enlightenment, the notion of a basic sanity, notion of surrendering, notion of openness, are all included in that particular situation. Although this particular figure or symbol, embodiment, is not regarded as simply unreasonably divine and sacred as such. And basically, divinity and sacredness from superficial level does not particularly hold any particular solidness. It is just purely a notion of something is untouchable, something is very sacred. It shouldn't be hampered or being touched by dirty hands. But in this particular case, the notion of sanity and devotion is something that exists within us, and also our faith and trust, a little experience that we might have of that portion of sanity and serenity are still very intact. That sort of something exists in us, and also something exists out of us at the same time, are combined together. So there are several levels of devotion, seemingly, and the basic devotion is sense of longing. In the Tibetan term for devotion is moku, which is divided into two sections. First one is a mopa, second one is a kupa. And mopa, in this case, is admiration. Such admiration could be purely looking for further object of heroism and fan approach, worshipping such a hero that possesses a great deal of grace and a great deal of dignity, a great deal of talent. In many cases that we find, by looking at an art object which are produced by a master artist, or listening to work that produced by a master artist, makes us jealous. depressed, because we would say to ourselves, how come that I can't do these things? I would like to be one of those people who produce fantastic work of art. There's a sense of pain involved, that it's hard to compete with somebody who's actually accomplished a tremendous discipline. The sense of pain is involved with that. Longingness also could take place in the sense that such artists had able to produce work of art, which is fantastic and great. So therefore, we feel lonesome. That we, on the other hand, are unable to execute such beautiful, brilliant work of art. We feel inadequate and completely stupid. That we feel inadequate, which creates a depression. And then at the other extreme it goes is because of all these people who produce fantastic things is purely insulted to us, and we get tremendously resentful about anything that beautiful and fantastic is presented to us, and we would like to steal work of art in the museums. We would like to destroy, burn down the museums, if you are going to the extreme, or if necessary, we just like to insult those people who actually have achieved something, those people who are in the position to achieve something, or those people who have an appreciation of some kind of work of art. We get completely pissed off at those kind of situations. And another situation is obviously immense distance between that work of art and our ability, our particular potentiality, that we begin to feel those work of art is fine, but nothing to do with me. And I would like to put on a record, if I want to relax, put that particular piece of music, or if I'm rich enough to buy such painting or reproduction of those, or even if I'm all that rich, but I might be able to buy a postcard of them by visiting the museums, or a book of it, admire it, but nevertheless, there's nothing to do with me. I'm completely devoid of such possibilities that we feel completely cut off. We feel that we have nothing to do with it, and we completely put off our psychological blockage on the basis of humbleness and resentment. And the sense of inadequacy is too painful to look into. So we decided just to cut it off completely. Admiration is a very dangerous word from that point of view. Admiring something that you want to actually suck in. You want to pour your passionate maple syrup, honey juice all over the place until you make the whole thing completely gooey. And eat it up completely. Or else admiration is a sense of awe and fear that you don't want to even touch this stuff. Or that your mind is completely closed off to that particular appreciation, particular possibilities of appreciation, completely closed off. And all those three possibilities seem to be the main reason: the repelling aspect of appreciation, and seduction aspect of appreciation, an indifferent aspect of the appreciation, which always goes on. When we begin to appreciate a guru, teacher, even a crazy wisdom person, shall we say, if you could dare to discuss such a topic at this point, sometimes you're meeting a crazy wisdom person, or even touching on the verge of the possibilities of that philosophy, that we are completely terrified, threatened, we would like to have nothing to do with it, absolutely nothing to do with it. Or else we would like to suck and chew and gnaw and swallow, digest completely, so it becomes part of you, so there's nobody threatened from outside. And the third possibility is related with the crazy wisdom person, quite a possibility, is just regarded as a pure icon that you hang on a wall. You appreciate, you worship, and thinking that if you're on the good side of such great people, such great concept, it's safe for you. If you're not on the wrong side, that's good. And just to make it into altarpiece. We do know a lot of cases, people around this country have fantastic wall painting, wallpaper filled with all kinds of guys from Indonesia to Japan, Eskimos and American Indians and Indian freaks or whatever you have, completely, your wall is completely pasted with those heroes, pin-ups of all kinds, completely filled with such personalities. Admiration is a very strange and dangerous word at the same time. In a lot of these cases, which you seem to be slightly outdated these days, but nevertheless such trip takes place, which is purely a trip and based on spiritual materialism, obviously, which this particular sadhana and the philosophy of this particular sadhana trying to cut through. That there is a sense of wanting to cut through. But at the same time that you would like to worship, that before that you be cut through, that you make sure that you want to be on the right side of such people. Instead of confronting Doji Troller or Karma Pakshi as a person, before you meet them, you would like them to be on the right side of your particular perspective, and supposing if they happens to show up, we could tell them, look, there's your painting of you. There's an altar I created for you. So I'm on your side, see? Don't destroy my ego. I'm on your side. That seemed to be the only reason why that we usually have that kind of approach towards the devotion, which is largely based on a sense of a materialistic approach, that we would like to win over those people which is a somewhat theistic approach, said it nonetheless, but again it's also not only a theistic approach, but it's a somewhat Christian approach. That the notion of the God is on our side. As long as we have a Bible and a cross, quite possibly a sword, that we could place the cross on our chest and carry the Bible on our other hand and carry the sword on the other hand, we are entitled to destroy any non-believers completely. we could kill our enemies who are regarded as non-believers, and they are anti-God at that point. Non-believers in the Bible. Admiration could also become somewhat secularized completely. The worship towards highest principles that we believe is based on a certain person who had immense accomplishment, immense understanding about reality, and immense richness. So we regard the object of our worship is that of a king. As long as you're on the right side of Don Corleone, everything's okay. Otherwise, you might be shot down or screwed, ripped off in your business adventures, whatever. Those are another kind of problems that exist. Admiration, so much for admiration. When we say, I admire you so much. Yeah? Why? What is it all about? How come? Where's that admiration come from? What do you do with it? Do you want to just purely tell me that? Or maybe there's something embarrassing about the whole thing. Admiration is somewhat negative from that point of view, but also at the same time equally it is very positive too. Admiring something is not only that you want to be sucked in, or you want to be eaten up, or you want to be part of that particular gang, part of that particular soldier. The society is such. But admiration can also bring a sense of heroism, tremendous dignity. That once you admire something, that doesn't mean to say you are competing with anything of your problems, but you share that particular immense vision. Could be glorified, fantastic firework, fantastic celebration. Reason why such attitude also can exist is because that there's no personal investment, so to speak, that you put into the cause, so to speak. That your role is simply to devote yourself, develop devotion completely. So you have no investment, and you are not expecting particular breakdowns in how much cut you get out of that particular business deal anymore. Absolutely not. So because of that sense of such openness, you have a complete deal, as a matter of fact, at the same time, on the other hand, that such admiration becomes sharing part of it. It's a fantastic crescendo. That kind of admiration is a sense of heroism in the true sense. Why? Because you don't regard the whole thing as purely a business deal. You regard the whole thing as just simply taking a journey along, and you are not particularly expecting any kind of cut comes out of that particular journey, profit of any kind as such particularly. And the whole admiration is a complete, clear system, process. And an analogy I can come up with is a person who can actually smell and feel the mountain air without least problem of sinuses difficulties. You can breathe fresh mountain air completely. You can say, look at the mountains. You can feel the cool, fresh mountain air you can breathe in through your lungs. You feel part of the mountains, part of this highland. Fantastic. That's admiration, sharing. Between the times you don't just run back to your bedroom and you're trying to get a duffel jacket over you. So in case I catch cold, although this mountain air is fantastic but suspicious, in case I catch cold, you don't do that. You just simply breathe your mountain air, which is a source of strength and life. At the same time, fantastic. Then we have the second portion of the devotion concept, which is called kupa, Tibetan, which literally means absence of arrogance, which actually goes down with what we discussed already. If you have a real sense of longing, devotion, sense of admiration, automatically, that automatically means the sense of absence of arrogance. Arrogance falls in a lot of levels. Sometimes it falls in a situation that there is a lot of passion, too much wanting is involved, and because of that, arrogance becomes you want to be object of the passionate person. that you cease to actually see the rest of your world properly. That you're so passionate, involved in your own arrogance, your own particular passionateness, basically, even relating with the teacher, guru, that you are involved with your own passion, that things that are created around you become such a sensual, passionate, sensual problem, which is actually a definition of what we actually call trip. In this point, when we call you're tripping on something, it is some kind of mixture of passion and arrogance together, which I have actually witnessed. It was such a monumental experience in visiting Iceland quite a few months ago. It was a fantastic demonstration of that. Everybody appreciates the ocean and the sunset and sunrise. Everybody's holding on to each other, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm. Everybody's drunk with beauty of whatever it may be. It's an unbelievable place. It's a place of decadence of such a situation, actually. So it even ceases to become a decadent situation, it becomes a real horrifying world. Can you imagine such thing? That the corpse begin to get up and put on their makeups and begin to dance, begin to make love to you. It's very deadly, but fantastically sensuous. Great place. More than one can imagine. I didn't realize actually sunset means all that lot to people. It is some kind of a demonstration of visual orgasm. Everybody loves to watch. And sunrise is some kind of giving a birth to your own personal child on the spot. Fantastic place. However, let's forget about that place. Such a monument out of neurosis had built all over the place, no doubt. And from that, even Disneyland is a world of enlightenment, actually. It's just good to find, you just go and see these things and find. It's supposed to be some kind of a statement of American existence, as Disney is the perfect American analogy of businessmen, pleasure, all kinds of trips. But it's very kind and very enlightened place. Compared with that, there are a lot of sanities in Disney from that point of view, compared with our place. Well, we have some kind of problem there actually. In notion of absence of arrogance, that how much we could actually indulge ourselves to personal situations, that we are actually collecting all these informations and all these techniques and stories and quotations and little words of wisdom to our benefit. That finally we could actually beat our old teacher who taught us to death. And get your reward by saying, when I used to be your teacher, you treated me wrong. You give me a hard time. But now it's my turn to give you a hard time. That seemed to be the wrong end of the stick. Immense arrogance. In the notion of absence of arrogance, from that point of view, is that there's a sense of less resentful about world in general, as well as that relationships that we are involved ourselves to our own particular world, our particular bank, that we have to make deals with our business, money level, and particular landlord, landlady, that we have to make a relationship spread. And all of those situations, it seems to provide us with the absence of arrogance. And particularly with the notion of guru in the crazy wisdom level, absence of arrogance is very much required, absolutely so, that you are demanded on the spot, that unless you are absence of arrogance, you are not accepted as a good student. You might have your pride in your poetry, your wood carving, your photography. You might have all kinds of talents, but you can't regard them as passport into the sanity. In fact, when you present them, they are the garbage towards sanity. So your visa might be rejected several times by presenting your little thingies, which hangs out, which you would like to use as conveniently applicable situation, to dress them up and write nice little reports about what you have done with your little thingies that exist, which is arrogant, is being dressed up as presentable. Which is trying to deal with amateur, sufficient amateurism is regarded as being professional, somewhat. You could write a whole book about that fantastic material that is devoted to your spiritual growth, that you had to fight with your mother in the past 20 years, and how much you've learned out of that. You could write whole essays, whole book about it. You could give it to your crazy wisdom person as application to entering into Vajrayana discipline. can imagine what such a person would experience dealing with a crazy wisdom person. In such little thing is made out into a professional approach. Quite possible you may be beheaded on the spot. Even if he's willing to do that, that's signs of acceptance, but even not that. Maybe give you a big pain on your neck. Your abilities to being great mathematician, that you understood the truth, the real truth out of this. You're a great poet, you understood the great truth out of that. You're a great carpenter, you're a great cook, or you're a great crook. All of those applications are regarded as phony. A crazy wisdom person wouldn't accept such thing at all. Out of the question altogether. Not that a crazy wisdom person is involved with the purely moralities of how respectable you are in society as such, particularly alone, but because that reason why you're bending the truth, in some sense, if you offer your particular neurosis as a gift, the opening gesture as such, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But beyond that, if you begin to dress them up and make it into a course description as if you're invited to teach in a university, it stinks. That seems to be usually what happens in a lot of the universities, is that you make up your own particular thing out of what you've learned, or of your own neurosis, and you use technical terms for it, try to dress them up, and make them respectable, and make them seemingly workable. And the whole thing says, this particular pile of shit I would like to present to my students. And it could be called it as a tote. And we're strange people. We have so many good ideas, such brilliant, but we are basically so dumb, so naive at the same time. Two situations of longingness and absence of ego,牟巴and Kupa, put together, which makes very constructive directions to practice situation.牟pa, or longingness, of heroism, and Kupa, in the sense of absence of ego, of clinging on one's own particular case history, which puts us in a completely naked situation, completely real situation, properly, fully, thoroughly. And out of that we get some kind of glimpse of the crazy wisdom possibilities. And those two particular measurements of牟pa and Kupa, twofold devotion process, are regarded as just eye-opening operation. First removing, slicing on your tissue of your eyes, and finally something that was obstacle in your retinue is removed as well at the same time. So those two situations are牟巴and Kupa. So finally you can see the vivid brilliantness of the real vision properly, fully. And again, I'm sorry to bore you with categories here, but there are two types of blessings that comes through with that. Traditional Buddhist term is adhishthana, or in Tibetan it is called chilampa, which is not quite the same as that of grace in the Christian terms, Judeo-Christian terms particularly. But chinap, adhishthana, which literally means that you're overwhelmed by ray or what you call radiation. You're overwhelmed by radiation, so that you begin to realize that particular situation becomes so radiant that you can't help not relating with that situation completely. Opened up, utterly opened up. Otherwise you could just be scorched and be baked, so to speak. It sounds like micro-affluent, doesn't it? So blessing is a very strange term that we usually use, which we actually have no idea what we are saying. Those lot of hippies or people who've been to India, and they come back by saying, I got blessing from Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, Mr. D, Mr. Z, all along. And that's become credential. Well, that's good, you got a blessing from all of those people. Fantastic. And they seem to have a hangover out of the blessings, rather than actually they did receive blessing. Which is very disappointing, as if you said that you woke up in the morning, somebody woke up in the morning and came to you by saying, I've been to a party, I have so much to drink. And when you check back with those people who gave you the drink, you had just drunk water all along. But somehow, rather somewhere along, you happen to manage to have a hangover. That's the kind of problems that you get hangover from drinking water, which means to say that nothing actually happens when you are there, but something happens when you actually woke up the next day. And people went to India, nothing happened to them, actually, not a little spot. And they're just the same resilient, crazy, and neurotic, spiritual materialistic as they were. When they come back and something happened, flying over, driving over, across the continent, and as soon as they landed in this country, they're very high. What happened to them? Is that adhishthana, blessing? If that's the case, that they don't even have to go to India. They get their blessing from being with their parents, going to school. A lot of people get a high and having a difficult relation with their parents, having a difficult relation with their schooling system. People get spaced out very easily. They don't need blessings to get spaced out. That's what I'm trying to say. You might find this is a slightly obnoxious remark. Yes, indeed. But nevertheless, it's true that it's not me making an obnoxious remark, but things are obnoxious from that point of view, which is very maddening, absolutely maddening. Who's getting who becomes a big problem. And now we're discussing the heart of the spiritual materialism actually at this point, which we're allowed to cover the whole area properly. When somebody goes to India, or when somebody drops out of school, which is saying the same thing at this point, getting out of the country, no matter that they made a great people, which they have not equipped to understand at all, colorful, getting out of school is also colorful, and then when you wake from there, you are completely blissed out, so-called, which is very strange. Unless there's immense Vajrayana teachings completely descending on us all the time, that instigating all these freakouts and all those rejections of your sanity, which is I am doubt. Where is blessing? Where is grace even? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. It's very sad, actually. It's worth laughing. That is precisely what we call spiritual materialism, which is this particular sadhana that we are discussing in question is trying to overcome from such deceptions. Blessing, fundamentally, adhishthana or jinlap, which means certain sense of radiation which takes place from the opening of student's mind to the teachings, and teacher's opening his mind, her mind, to the students. Between the two openness, whole experience becomes not only naked but radiant. It burns each other completely. The teacher begins to get understanding of the student's desire, devotion, and the students begin to get teacher's desire, openness, and its powerful input in it properly. So what we're talking about here is that we can't expect anybody to become pregnant unless you actually made love. So similar situations that nobody can actually receive real blessings unless they're open to each other. That seems to be the basic point. And being such is our case, we don't believe birth of virgin become mother, whatever we call in the mystical languages, whether it was accident or in scientific, whatever it may be, that's questionable. So we believe nobody can become pregnant from that point of view. Sense of real radiation, sense of real openness can take place. And when that begins to happen, actually, there's a sense of something has happened to us properly. which is the first grade of adhishthana. And the second grade of adhishthana, which is what's known as the transference of jnana, or in Tibetan term is known as yeshe powa, transference of wisdom, yeshe, into one system, which happens after there is some kind of openness actually took place. And then something is beginning to transmit into us properly and fully. At that level, that the sadhana actually discusses the supplications the appreciation of a particular aspect of Dojo Trolo Karmapakshi, at the same time also appreciation of that particular aspect coming to us. And we begin to acknowledge those things properly. Although I am not such a good situation, this situation is here, which I'm not particularly trying to reject. Nevertheless, I'm so pleased, glad to see what's happening. That there is a possibility to workability. Otherwise, there's nothing that can be workable. With true devotional and compassion couldn't come together. You have the reading from me.
O Karmapa, Lord and knower of the three times, O Padmasambhava, Father and protector of all beings, you transcend all coming and going. Understanding this, I call upon you to give thought to your only Son. I am a credulous and helpless animal who has been fooled by the mirage of duality. I've been fool enough to think that I possess my own projections. So now you, my Father, are my only refuge. You alone can grasp the Buddha state. The glorious copper-colored mountain is within my heart. Isn't this pure and all-pervading naked mind your dwelling place? Although I live in the slimy mud of the dark age, I still aspire to see it. Although I stumble in the thick black fog of materialism, I still aspire to see it. The joy of spontaneous awareness, which is with me all the time, isn't this your smiling face, O Karma Padmasambhava? Although I live in the slimy mud of the dark age, I still aspire to see it. Although I stumble in the thick black fog of materialism, I still aspire to see it. At glorious Tagtsang, in the cave which can accommodate everything, samsara and nirvana both, the heretics and bandits of hope and fear are subdued and all experiences are transformed into crazy wisdom. Isn't this your doing, O Dorje Troller? Although I live in the slimy mud of the dark age, I still aspire to see your face. Although I stumble in the thick black fog of materialism, I still aspire to see your face. The corpse, bloated with the 8 worldly concerns, is cut into pieces by the knife of detachment and served up as the feast of the great bliss. Isn't this your doing, O Karmapakshi? Although I live in the slimy mud of the dark age, I still aspire to see your face. Although I stumble in the thick black fog of materialism, I still aspire to see your face.
Thank you. So, we can open to questions. If you're in position.
Rinpoche, could you tell us a little bit about the circumstances under which you wrote the sadhana?
I think that comes to an end. I plan to do that.
Rinpoche, do you think doing asanas and purifications and being a vegetarian and eating organic food is all part of spiritual materialism?
Yes.
I wonder if you could explain exactly what arrogance is.
Maybe you can tell me. What's your rough guess?
Territorial pride.
Yeah, sure. And some chauvinistic tendencies. And also some notion of not accepting the lameness of oneself. Lameness, you be lame and helpless. Nobody would like to acknowledge if you're arrogant. If they're arrogant, to acknowledge that they're helpless.
They're helpless to be arrogant, or they're
because they're arrogant, they need any help from anybody else. So not asking for any kind of sympathy in terms of genuine communication. So that's where the devotion comes in. It's when somebody's, willing to help, that you're not buying it regarded as insult, rather than an act of compassion. You say, I don't need your help, I'm going okay, And if you're just falling down in the icy road, and somebody's trying to catch you, say, please don't catch me. Get out of my way, I'm doing my thing. Although it's not your thing, but it's an avoidable thing that's happening to you, which is disastrous.
Kind of getting back to the arrogance, perhaps. The lady who asked about the asanas and the purifications, and you said, well, that's spiritual materialism. But it seems to me that the practice itself, that spiritual materialism is how you do a practice rather than the nature, than the practice itself.
Well, the practice itself...
And there's a kind of a tendency, it seems to me, for everything that's not strictly part of this particular scene to be get a big SM.
SM, spiritual materialism? Well, I think the question is that in this case, what we're trying to do is that trying to point out potential spiritual materialism exists in us, and constantly, exposing them. Whereas the other possibilities that if you do asanas, you improve your body. If you eat healthy food, whatever they may be, and you're going to build your great body, which is not even, there's no hint of any possibilities, which seem to be whole things based on not only spiritual materialism as a consciousness level, or even conscious level, but whole thing is based on ignorance. That not only there's such thing as a problem of spiritual materialism at all. It's I see a lot of these people in Jackson, Wyoming, and Snowmass in Aspen, and people with fantastic bodies still trying to ski, and young people still trying to be extraordinarily hip and extraordinarily arrogant and unapproachable. At the same time, they don't want to be approached in any kind of challenged level. But still, they're trying their best. Anything they talk about in their dinner parties is how much inheritance they were going to get.
Well, might it not be useful, though, to illustrate spiritual materialism every now and then with examples of how the practices that we're into can be twisted, so to speak?
I think it's very hard to escape. I think you'll be spotted if you begin to twist. Because there's so much prejudice exists there. Everybody's their keen eye on every one of each other. And you can't actually get away with it.
I hope so.
I'm a little bit confused about your use of the term heroism or heroic. Sometimes it seems like a very negative connotation associated with arrogance or pride, and other times very positive thing like courageous or real fearlessness.
Both. Well, basically, heroism is a positive word as I use it. It's connected with a sense of dignity and straightforwardness, and not particularly being apologetic. But obviously, it has its own negative tendencies as well at the same time. It's a question of both. But idea of heroism, if we could actually disconnect with any kind of philosophical jargons or sociological jargons that existed in the past, and this heroism is the same as a devotional. It's very positive. That's what the Bodhisattva path is made out of. The definition of Bodhisattva as being that he who is proud and diligent enough to follow path towards enlightenment, which is simply heroism. And his practices, generosity, discipline, and so forth, are based on a sense of heroism. Not a sense of that he would like to make himself into a hero, like a movie star. But, sense of there is something to inspire, to take pride in one's nation, one's particular world. And in this particular country, that everybody seems to have lost the notion of heroism, and maybe said too much, and maybe there's too much things happening, maybe the country is too big. Everybody lost their Americanized heroism, American pride. Only a few awkward, uptight people hold that particular truth, which is embarrassing, and it's terrible in some sense, but I suppose that's how the wind blows, how the egg boils.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
over the past few days, you've spoken of an environment charged with cosmic, continuous, fearless, crazy wisdom, and talked about...
Did I?
Yeah. Actually, I think it was cosmic, continuous, crazy wisdom, I think is what you said. And also dhyana, wisdom is knowing primordially. I'm having a hard time trying to see the distinction between primordial awareness and a theistic point of view, how they exclude each other.
Each other meaning what?
Meaning that, in a sense, it's said that we're practicing an atheistic sort of approach, and yet
non-theistic.
Non-theistic.
Yeah.
And I'm having a hard time seeing how the dividing line between primordial awareness and a non-theistic approach.
Well, we could say that primordial awareness is not particularly related with non-theism as such per se, and I mean theism approach per se. The primordial awareness I have to ask you more questions about that, actually. I'm not so sure what you're talking about. We have some problems there.
You're asking me?
Yeah. Well, can you just give me a... What's the problem with the theism?
What's the problem with theism?
Yeah.
Well, there's no problem with it. I'm just trying to understand the difference between a non-theistic approach and a theistic approach. In the sadhana that David just read, there was seeming to be a sense of calling to something outside of oneself, in a sense. And somehow, somewhere along the line, I seem to have understood that perhaps we aren't really trying to call to something outside of ourselves.
Well, that seems to be saying the same thing. Is that we are not particularly trying to call outside. There's a very interesting line in the ruling class movie, which the guy says, that why do you think you are God? He says, because when I pray, I hear myself speak to myself. And that's very cheap logic. And that's precisely what's happening in the ordinary cases. Obviously, when you talk to yourself, you hear yourself. Even though you're supposed to addressing somebody, but you hear yourself talking to yourself. Another thing is that the idea is that all kinds of demands made on you, your own particular understanding, that you are not particularly asking forgiveness, that you committed a gigantic sin, which is based on a whole kind of approach of particularly Christianity opposed to the rest of the theism, such as like Hinduism or Islamic traditions, Zoroastrian, whatever you have, and even Judaism. But in the Christian tradition, there is a lot of emphasis being made on guilt. And in this case, that such commitment between your inspiration or your higher beings and you are purely made arbitrarily. Even bypassing Christ. And you're purely talking to something bigger than intermediary person. And that seems to be the interesting point. There is no particular need to say that you are actually asking that you have been bad boy, bad girl, and please forgive us, now on I'm going to be good. But it is everything just pure demand, talking to yourself. And that has, not only that, but it has a lot of magic to it at the same time. That we are not just purely be very naively talking to ourselves, thinking that one of these days we're going to be woken up as a Buddha. But we are also talking to our fundamental intelligence and fundamental electricity that exists in us, which is called magic. The magic comes from nowhere, but exists within us and other situations as well. But it is largely based on nothing to do with the gift of God as such. It's just woken up, like magic of electricity just come along when you begin to get electric shock from a thunder bolt. You just get it on the spot. That's the kind of magic we're talking about. We're not talking about it particularly invoking anybody, any person, so we could fearful somebody particularly, but we're just doing it on the spot. It's starting to get very complicated. It's actually very simple. Anything else?
I guess I was trying to figure out the relationship in this to, you've spoken a lot about faith, and I'm still kind of not clear about exactly, you seem to have described the theistic approach as faith and sort of a future orientation, some future reward, and would it be correct to say that we're trying to just have faith in the present, just the present moment is all we're trying to have faith in?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, absolutely. We're not asking particularly to go to harvest or inviting the next Messiah. We don't care about that. We want to just sit and meditate.
Would it at the same time, though, be possible to just have faith in the present moment and have a theistic approach?
Doesn't sound like it. Somehow it doesn't work. Somehow it doesn't work. You see, then you have an investment in both camps.
It's different from being agnostic, right? Is it?
Yeah. Well, that you have somebody, you can actually let it go with somebody. And then you're also asking somebody else to help you to let it go. It's kind of analogy is that you have two homes. You see, it's evident as far as the situation goes, which reflects your attitude, automatically bounce back on you. And the situation demands you to make up your mind, in some sense.
Thank you.
Think about that. Take on.
Am I right to think that devotion to an external person has to go with the development of faith in order to avoid arrogance?
This case, external person we are talking about is somebody actually you can relate it with personally, not kind of imaginary person. Yeah, in that case, yeah.
A real external person.
Real external person.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Well, from that point, we probably should let go and getting quite early already. Unless there's any announcement, is there an announcement? Okay. Thank you for being very patient.
back here, Beth Carey.